So Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke are finally set to square off on the 31st of March at the O2 Arena in London for the British and Commonwealth heavyweight titles. This fight will be broadcast on Sky Sports, obviously promoted by Ben Shalom Boxer, and it's a very good look for them because they haven't exactly had the best time over the past year or so in terms of delivering good fights for the fans. This is definitely one that will pique a lot of people's interest, and it makes amends to some extent for the failed attempt to make this fight in the past, which was down apparently to Ben Shalom wanting Frazer Clarke to have one or two more fights before stepping in there against Fabio Wardley. So let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Personally, I've been really impressed by the improvements that Fabio Wardley has shown throughout his career. This is the kind of guy who's really a natural born fighter, and I'm talking about in terms of his mentality. You can teach people things technically, but some people just naturally have a fighting instinct that others don't. I mean, an example would be Vladimir Klitschko and Vitaly Klitschko. Vladimir admitted that he didn't have a natural fighter's instinct, but his brother did. And you could see that in the way their careers played out. With Fabio Wardley, he certainly has more of the Vitaly Klitschko in him, the natural fighting instinct, and he's needed that because he's had to compensate for the lack of amateur experience. He only had a handful, less than a handful, of white-collar bouts. So, yeah, he's really impressed me in terms of the way that he's improved. I mean, even the improvement from the Nathan Gorman fight to the Adelaide fight was quite considerable. And as with Frazer Clarke, he's a guy obviously that has an extensive amateur background, but so far he hasn't done much as a pro. He hasn't had that many fights. Of course, Fabio Wardley is the one with far more professional experience. He's 17-0, 16 KOs. Frazer Clarke is only 8-0 with 6 KOs. His last fight was a stoppage win over Dave Allen in 6 rounds. Prior to that, he had a points decision win over Marius Wack, who's a very tough man. That was at the York Hall Bethnal Green. So, yeah, those are the two fighters. I'm very much looking forward to it. The question here, in terms of, keeping the fans happy, is whether it's going to be on pay-per-view. Because, of course, they're talking about how this could be the best British heavyweight title fight since Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte, and that was certainly on pay-per-view. The problem with putting this fight on pay-per-view and using that one as a justification is that Anthony Joshua was a much bigger name than either of these guys. In fact, Anthony Joshua at the time he fought Dillian Whyte was a bigger name than Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke combined. There's a long tradition in Britain of these great heavyweight title fights, British heavyweight title fights, going back many, 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 many decades. Way back in the days, I remember watching Danny Williams against Keith Long. That was a real sleeper. If you haven't seen Danny Williams versus Keith Long, go watch that fight. That was a great British heavyweight title dust-up. And of course, Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte was the last great one. Will this one live up to either of those two? If it's even half as good, then they'll be doing well. As far as who I think the winner is going to be, I'll talk about that closer to the actual contest. But if you want to drop your predictions in the comment section below, feel free to. Now, when I'd previously talked about this fight, it was maybe, 2 or 3 fights back for Frazer Clarke, perhaps the same for Fabio Wardley. I was leaning towards Clarke, but again, because Fabio Wardley has improved so much, even in his past couple fights, I wouldn't necessarily make that same pick now. I want to analyze some of their fights, go over the film footage, see if I can pick out some things before I make my prediction. So yeah, you can look forward to that. But for now, let me know what you guys think in the comments.